Okay.
Now again, referring back to the example of Hunts Point, that in that area, city, yes, much of the freight for produce and meat and other bulk products are in fact moved in by rail, because it does have good access to the broad Northeast Corridor, the National Rail Network. And one way is for over there to use this food hub as an anchor to revitalize that neighborhood. Again, keep in mind, Hunts Point is one of the poorest census tracts in the United States in terms of household income
Right.
and proportion below poverty line.
Right. And you and the city actually has told us we want to create jobs.
Correct.
This is all about jobs. It's all about upskilling labor
Yes.
in that neighborhood.
Right. So if you get someone who's making minimum wage $20,000 a year, and now with a high skilled job, that person makes $60,000 a year. That's what the city's looking for.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I don't know what's achievable. I didn't know that jobs in food packing were paying $60,000 a year.
Depends
in
on what
today's
types.
world.
That if you are well trained, if you are actually top of the line, if you're very skilled in.
Look, I don't know what the jobs of the future are, young boy. I don't know.
Of course,
I don't know what kind of food
of
jobs
course
are going to get us
we-
to 60. I mean, a butcher might make, but you're
Of
offering.
course we won't. That
So don't
here-
talk about $60,000 a year jobs. There are none of those.
Well,
in food.
Actually,
Because minimum wage is $15, if that, right? And you just
well, $15, that's $30,000 if you say it's living wage. If it's official minimum wage, it's only $20,000 a year. But here's the thing with 60,000. Here's where the 60,000 can come from is that because now, let's say you train these people, some from the poorest households in the city, to be very proficient at computers, coding,
Yeah.
that they can operate robots, they can operate computerized machinery. That's easily 60,000. And
Oh.
then, guess what that does? You now have a meat market that can operate on a. If you note, for example, if you take a look at a satellite photo of Hunts Point anytime, compare the current meat market versus that new lot we're trying to move it to, that is how you can squeeze 10 acres worth of markets, of the meat market, onto not even 2.5. In terms, you could basically you only need a quarter of the space to handle the same or even greater amount of volume, throughput,
Via.
thanks to automation.
Okay, so this brings us to this other, I think I'll give everyone that example of Amazon and how they redefined, distribution and,
Yeah.
and packing. I don't mean to be so boring and use
Yeah.
something that everyone knows.
Yeah.
But, we want people to think about how we can improve processes. And the only way you can improve processes in something like food distribution is from the ground up. We need to build a new facility with new robotic systems in there
Yes.
to do that. And we have the knowledge to do that.
Yes, all that technology is off shelf. It's now how, if you ask Garry Kasparov, chess master,
Right.
he wrote the book Deep Thinking. Highly recommended reading.
Okay.
Deep Thinking.
Okay.
That is the first time. It's a very comprehensive retelling of how chess evolved in the age of computing,
Yes.
and then how he was beat by IBM's Deep Blue eventually by 97.
Yes.
And also how eventually he came to the conclusion that the way forward is for humans and machines to complement each other. Think of the concept as the machine being, if you're a human, your outboard brain. As in the machine, anything left-brained eventually be done by machine. Right brain's gonna be forever human.
Well, I'm a lefty, which means I'm right-brained.
Yeah.
And in my former life, I certainly thought arts and artistry was the only path for me. But as you all know, I came back from Hollywood penniless and distracted by the fact that I had no money. I ended up living with my mom. So it was a big kick in the old cahoots to get myself back into... Why am I making it personal? Do you think I should not make it personal? No. I think what I'm saying is that if we all had more time and less computer work and less busy work, we would all be better off. So we're creating New York-based opportunities to improve our city. I'm extrapolating out into that. What we want to do with... Is this food hub... Is it only going to cover... Do we have any sketches or mock-ups of our site?
Well, the site itself, they've already produced several renderings what the site's going to look like.
Okay.
However, the building on the site, there is quite a bit of flexibility in terms of building envelope. However, the key for that site is to take advantage of as much of the existing zoning provisions as possible. And it's already pretty flexible given that thanks to New York's agricultural markets law on food manufacturing properties, any type of retail use that's food related is permitted. So thus, that can be a way of bridging, of really weaving that industrial district more closely into the neighborhood as a whole.
I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about anything you think we should be talking about. I was thinking that whole financial scheme that overarches our business model, because everyone can develop, and
of course.
What's your special angle?
Well, so here is that you have a permanent capital vehicle developing those lots. Your key is to let the lot owners... Here's what the offer to a lot owner.
Offer to lot owner.
You could either... So first is you may be seeking to exit, so that would be fee simple acquisition of a lot. If you're seeking to exit this all along.
Right.
Number two, that if you are looking at a steady income stream from this, ground lease. Still on the land, and we'll do a pilot arrangement.
Okay.
Or third, again, this is only if you're willing to get a lot more committed, but in exchange you'll get a lot more of the upside. Have a controlling equity stake in the project and jointly develop the projects.
Okay. Take us through all the options as far out into the future as you can, as quickly as you can.
Of course.
Only because we have some battery issues.
Yeah, understood. Now, if you take all those different options out, ideally, if you put them together, the ideal scenario would be the control equity stake, because that is what will enable the smaller developers, often local, often well connected to the surrounding neighborhood, to prosper the most.
When you say developers, you actually mean lot owners.
Right, the lot owners.
You'll allow them to become developers.
Right.
You're giving... So we're offering a lot owner perhaps the very best, perhaps better than residential and better than a regular old office tower. We're offering them something unique and special.
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct. And what's really even better about this is that as this grows, as it expands, as the base expands, that in conjunction with these two proofs of concepts, depending on how they turn out, if those turn out to plan, then that means that may actually make the city council far more receptive to streamlining the subway station upgrade bonus process.
Yes. Take us into that world for a few minutes.
Now, with that is for a station upgrade, you have a basic package for any subway station, platform screen doors, so no one falls on tracks. You're also going to have elevators, so anyone in a wheelchair can easily get into a station instead of having to use Access-a-Ride as frequently. Highest cost operating element of the MTA, by the way. And third, at least per passenger, have extended broadband. It could be Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or LoRa, whatever protocol. So those who are visually impaired can have easy wayfinding. So that would be your basic package for an expedited subway station upgrade. Do that, and then have a standard formulae for calculating based on context, so based on what type of development you're doing, how much will this affect the system, how it affects surrounding neighborhood, a zoning bonus. So do this at every subway stop, and right there that unlocks over 100 billion of new assets, of new wealth generated in pursuit of the Sustainable Development Goals from now to 2030, just in New York City alone.
Right.
And even better, let's say you extend these provisions further out. Let's say instead of just those lots adjacent, let's say if you are a lot within a 15-minute walk of a subway stop, let's say within a mile radius of a subway stop. Right there, and then have a formulae that adjusts based on both also proximity. You're going to have well over $1 trillion worth of assets right there, just through using the New York City subway system as a spine to anchor this development while fulfilling whatever capital budget upgrades would be necessary 100% privately. No taxpayer money needed, no need for fare hikes above the rate of inflation, as long as you're willing to accept a few buildings that might just be a bit taller than the surroundings, those close to the subway stop. If you only accept that, say you could probably do pretty well without another tax hike or a fare hike.
Do you want to discuss ride sharing and any driverless vehicles or smart city stuff?
So all this, it can be well integrated with. Here's the thing, it can be integrated with whatever mobility system comes to play. However, again, ditto for blockchain AI, none of this hinges upon the success of new autonomous vehicle models.
Yeah, I just thought you might have some concept of, getting to the subway station as well.
Where I could see automation really playing a role, though.
Because, I've always thought, if only the car was there to pick me up outside my house to drive me to the bus stop, that would be great.
Actually, of course, that would be a convenience. However,
that's not realistic, is it?
At least not in this time scale. However, what is realistic in this time scale is to make all trains automated.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing there is you reduced costs, made the system more productive.
How are you going to pull that into how are you going to be able to do that? Are we going to have we haven't really talked about other specific visions of our labs and concepts, but is that where you're coming from with the trains? So
that could be a lab project. Of course, that technology is already off the shelf. So it's more about just deploying the tech. Here's the thing, it's more about.
Is the MTA testing driverless trains?
Yes.
Where?
Semi-autonomous. L-Train has already been single, as in DTO, for example, as in driverless train operation.
Right.
With only a conductor on board. So traditionally you have a driver and a conductor. You take out the driver, you only have a conductor. Yeah. So the L has been operating like that since 2004.
With just the driver?
Yes.
Okay.
And now the second line to do that, not just driver, just the conductor.
So
now the 7 train also has just the conductor.
Okay. So
here's where I see this with rail system, that, and even for construction projects in the subway system, that many of them here, you might realize that New York has by far some of the highest costs.
Is there a difference between the way it's operated at the MTA and Long Island Railroad versus the way the subways are operated? Is there like some engineering differences, or because I'm asking because those are other large.
Well, if you start with the MTA New York City subway, that's already that's already all within the 5 boroughs, and that is by far. So the MTA has a total daily one-way ridership of, if you take in New York City, trains, buses, commuter rail. If you just take trains and buses alone, that's 8.5 million, and then the subway is about 6 million per day.
Trains and buses, meaning trains like
subway, heavy rail. Whereas
heavy rail.
if you
Trains
take
and
Long
buses,
Island Railroad,
6.5. Subway 8.5.
No. If you take the subway is 6.
Okay.
Then add 2.5 for buses.
Okay.
And then for the LIRR is another 500,000, and then about another 500,000 for Metro North.
And then, of course, the path.
Yeah, you got Port Authority. Once you consider that, then you basically have a system of 10 million commuters.
Okay, great.
Across the region.
Great. I like talking big numbers.
Yeah.
I have some of those statistics on my computer. We like thinking about how many daily commuters there are, but one of the areas that I want to just quickly go over is, because we're focusing so much on health and life sciences, I want to just, like, in case our viewer doesn't know, we have in New York a few major hospital systems, and the largest concentrations of hospitals are the ones on East 69th Street, 68th Street, and York Avenue. There's the New York Presbyterian, Cornell, and Memorial Sloan Kettering. We also, I just want to talk about that particular area. It's like a large block of different hospital buildings. It's not that much research focused, but Cornell has a research arm now. They're doing a launch. They now are investing. They have some entrepreneurial challenges going on there. The other thought I had was that NYU has a string of hospitals along 2nd Avenue in the 20s. Columbia Hospital System has a major hospital on 169th Street in Washington Heights. And Mount Sinai is on 99th Street on 5th Avenue. There was several buildings there. Lenox Hill, LIJ, Long Island LIJ Hospital. That's on 77th Street. And St. Luke's. St. Luke's?
Yes.
Is that what it's called? That I don't know where that's like West Village. And then Mount Sinai has there's a couple in Harlem. There's one in Harlem on like 110 or so.
Yep, and another complex in several in Brooklyn. Lefferts Garden.
There's one also. Mount Sinai has a complex in not a complex. They have at least they have an extension. I think it's Astoria. And I want to just plot these for people so that we can think about how our sites can be utilized. And the reason I bring that up is, in New York, I know that a lot of people fly here for surgeries and special treatments. And I know actually the annual number of tourists, I don't know the number of medical tourists there are, but I know the annual number of tourists coming here it's 54 million come in through all the airports. That's annual. They generate $44 billion in revenue. I just don't know. I've actually, as a real estate agent, I've had to deal with customers who come in, they want to stay short-term housing, get treatment at MSK or Cornell or something. And I just think if we're going to make this big push into investment of new sites, which these are maybe not allowed. I don't know what the rules are. I don't know if we're allowed to offer treatment of patients, but we're certainly probably going to be doing clinical trials.
Yes.
And things like that. And with clinical trials, you need patients. So I just think we need to be thinking in terms of accommodating those kinds of situations and being reflective on maybe new neighborhoods. Also thinking about the hotel stock in the city in those areas, or what the most appropriate places for travelers. Oh, we also forgot to mention Cornell Tech. Is there anything healthcare going on that campus?
Yes, plenty. So it's co-located. That campus is all inclusive of Weill Cornell.
Weill Cornell has some dormitory housing on Roosevelt Island as well.
Yes.
So I'm sure that if Weill Cornell, it probably would be right to give those people who are staying in the housing opportunities to work on Roosevelt Island, so they don't have to commute every day.
Yeah.
Underground on the F train or above ground in the. So, I just think what we're doing here is we're talking about a lot of different things that relate to cities and doing business in our city. So, do you have any other kind of closing remarks?
Yes. Now, keep in mind that this is only one of numerous elements of how New York City will be able to achieve its 2030 Sustainable Development Targets.
2030 Sustainable Development Targets set by de Blasio.
Right, by de Blasio.
In what year did he do that? 2016?
In March of 2016, during CSW 60. So almost exactly 2 years ago around this time.
What's CSW 60?
Oh, that was the 60th annual meeting of the Commission on the Status of Women at the UN. Okay. So it was a side event during those meetings that they announced New York aligning its local initiatives, so they call it Global Vision, Urban Action.
Right.
And New York, global city with global goals.
Right. So, we implore, the mayor and city council to take heed of our great overarching investment thesis, which is let's build out...
make New York City a model for how sustainable development is done.
Yeah. Which we believe we have the best tools and team to do that.
Yes, and plenty, plus all the resources of the city itself at our disposal.
We're going to be united. This brings us back to the original program, the CAT, Centers for Advanced Technology. It's a state grant program, and it's only nominal in terms of how much money we're going to be getting from them. But the actual effect is that we're going to be getting major institutions such as Cornell, Columbia, and Pratt, and CUNY and SUNY to take a look at even not just individually being a center for advanced technology, but they can join forces and be together in such a center. And we would also be able to attract corporate matching dollars, and they could have, obviously, the access to the internet intellectual property that is generated from the center, royalty free.
Yeah, and for example of how this would work out, take a look at the MIT Media Lab.
Exactly.